Yes, people, what's going on? Apologies for the slight delay. We've had some technicals to deal with, but yeah, we're here. Big succession, obviously head-to-head game with Chelsea coming up. So I thought I'd get a very special guest on representing Chelsea, and we're going to talk about this game tomorrow, man. Looking forward to it. Let's go. Yes, people, welcome again. Gunner Six, Gunner King's Big Six show, and big game this weekend, the London Derby between the only two teams in London really worth talking about. Let's be honest. But look, it's a weird season. Like I think
Mhm.
usually the roles are a bit more reversed. So I guess Carefree. I mean, what are your thoughts on the season so far for Chelsea?
Simultaneously want football over and I don't want it over within the same sentence, if that makes any sense. Like, we have been a car crash this season, an absolute car crash. And obviously, it's not the manager's fault, like, but we'll get into that later on in general. But I understand Potter needs time to build his squad and everything. Things might probably get worse before it gets better, but as the season's been right now, he's done the best that he could to steer this ship. Like the last few weeks under Tuchel were very, very painful. I think the first few weeks under Potter have been a bit more settled, but the football still hasn't been convincing. Chelsea haven't been convincing. I already knew we weren't even sniffing a title race, but hell, if we're even talking about top four, we've got to massively improve if we even want to get into that sort of conversation. So as it stands right now, I just want to take it a game at a time. But yeah, we ain't the same Chelsea from the last time we met. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's it's just been a complete shock this season. I think, to be honest, with everything that took place. I mean, seeing you guys after the summer window, where you obviously invested a lot in your squad. I think that's the record spend of any summer window, and I think looking at it, you
Was it?
definitely, yeah. No team's
Oh,
ever spent more in Premier League history
oh
in a
my
transfer
god.
window. Yeah, so I definitely was looking at Chelsea and thinking, that's going to be they're going to be sort of setting the tempo of for other clubs to follow, but it's not really turned out like that. I mean, were you took out like towards like the end, or do you think it was a bit of a hasty decision? I mean, what were your thoughts on Tuchel leaving? Was it a shock or one that you
Um,
welcomed? Not
I'd
really.
say it was a shock, but it was only because I didn't expect it from the new regime. If we're talking about like managers leaving and everything, like if you've been a Chelsea fan, you've been through worse. I've seen Jose get sacked the first time and the second time. Both were way more heartbreaking. Even though this one really hurt, we've been here before. Like we're Chelsea. Like fact is, it's kind of in our nature to sack managers a bit prematurely, and I think that was the case with Tuchel. Tuchel needed way more time to build his squad. I get we spent 300 million, but we spent 120 or so million on just replacing centre backs because the old regime let Christensen and Rudiger go for free. So
Mm.
even in spite of the money that we spent, I kind of get it. We made so many steps backwards with the way we handled our players over the last few years. The scouting of players that we brought in. There's a lot of replacements that need to be made and still need to be made. So there's still more money that needs to be spent. But Tuchel 100% needed more time. I think he was definitely treated harshly. I get that he had a falling out with the board, but this sort of thing, like in hindsight, is understandable. Like Roman did the same thing. When he came in 2004, he got rid of the whole backroom staff. He eventually got rid of Ranieri and he brought in his whole new team and for a whole new identity for the squad. And that's what Bowley's doing. But if you wanted to do that with Tuchel, like either do that at the end of this season or do that even after last season. Yeah, it would have felt even more crazier to do it, but I would understand that a lot more than just doing it a month into the start of a new season. Because now we're basically throwing this season away. If we make top 4, we'll take it and we'll move on. If we even win a domestic trophy, I guess that will look like a positive for the season. But in terms of where the club wants to be, it's not really. It's just we haven't done anything. And this season was where we were meant to start building what Tuchel wanted the identity of his club to be. And now we're just back to stage 1, which is again understandable. I know it's going to be a long season. I know things are going to get worse before it gets better, but I just think the new regime handled this really poorly. If they wanted Tuchel gone, give him till the end of the season. If he doesn't perform well, then you have more of a reason to sack him. If you do it at the start of the season, it looks harsh, but people aren't going to complain as much. It just looks clueless. Like you spent 300 million on what on what Tuchel was meant to want, just to sack him. Now the new manager's going to come in, might not even like the players that we brought in, and he's going to have to put the team in a completely new image. That's where my problem is.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I couldn't agree more. To be honest, I think I think Tuchel definitely wasn't the problem at all. I think yes, okay, like the style of football and sort of the manner that you were playing in wasn't good, but I mean, I can speak from experience in terms of a rebuild. At the moment, I think Arsenal, Liverpool, when you look at Klopp when he rebuilt Liverpool as well, you see that it takes time and investment. Like you spoke about, sort of the vast majority of what Tuchel was allowed to spend was in this window. You can't expect a return in 7 games at all. I mean, it's one thing bringing in the players that you think fit your system. I feel Tuchel still would have needed more players to be able to call that system fully his own. And I definitely think a lot of things happened. I think on a grander scale, when we won the FA Cup under Arteta very early, I think it gave a false image or representation of what needed to be done at Arsenal. And I think your Champions League win did something quite similar to your squad. Like I think
now
you
you
look at
mentioned
like
it, yes.
Tuchel come in straight off the bat, obviously got that done. I think you were 8th or 9th when he came in, got you in top 4, won you the Champions League. And I think looking at how you approached last season, the notion was like a number 9 would finish your squad, a few bits of replacements here or there in midfield. I think you only signed like 2 major players for your first team squad.
Yeah, and one was just a panic buy for midfield depth. So even Lukaku, like Tuchel didn't necessarily say he wanted him. He said he was happy with him in the squad. Happy if he is.
I don't feel. I don't. I'm not convinced he was a Tuchel signing. Like Lukaku. I think he didn't want Haaland, and I think obviously the club weren't willing to pay what Dortmund wanted at that time for him, and I think it kind of what went under the radar is that your midfield was starting to come off the hinges. Look, Kante's quality. Kovacic, I think, at the moment is your best central midfielder, and looking at Jorginho again, he was very good at the Euros, very good in the Champions League run. So, but most of those players have injuries in them. Kante especially, and I think yes, you needed a striker, but you actually needed to do a bit more to your midfield then. To kind
That
of
was
freshen it
Tuchel's
up.
mistake. Because like the one thing that I held Tuchel accountable for in the summer was he spent the whole summer saying we didn't need a midfielder. And then like 2 days before deadline day, We lost 2-1 to Southampton. And then suddenly it was all going around. Chelsea have realized they need a midfielder. We're panicking. We're looking for a midfielder. It's like, bro, we already knew this. Like Kante, on his day, world class, but that day is so few and far between now, and he is so injury prone. You just can't rely on him at all.
That's it.
Kovacic, he's injury prone as well to the same extent, but he doesn't take as long to come back from his injuries. But the same way, he's injury
Yeah.
prone too. Ruben,
He's
injury prone. Gallagher, he was misprofiling. He was saying he was basically N'Golo Kante when he isn't. He's like another Mason Mount. And
yeah.
Jorginho, like, to be fair, he ain't injury prone. Like, he's always available, but that's our problem. We always stretch Jorginho because he's the only fit midfielder at any point.
Mm,
Everyone knew we needed a midfielder except Tuchel. So to me, it was like, cool, everything that goes wrong with our midfield this season, I'm holding you accountable for. Because I don't know how you could see that and think we didn't need a midfielder.
true. Yeah, and I think I think you and Liverpool made that similar mistake, but I think you did it a season early, and I think going into last season, um, obviously, look, you still finished third, got quite far in the Champions League, got to two cup finals. I think you won the Club World Cup as well.
Mm.
So on the balance of things appear rosy on the surface again. But I think again, there was so much to do now with Rudiger leaving, Christiansen leaving. So you've got those defenders and still this midfield problem. Um, I felt, creativity on the right hand side. Lukaku hadn't worked out. All of a sudden, it creates kind of like a chaos, like a perfect storm moment where it's like, hang on, that's defenders, midfielders, and an attacker we need. Central midfielders, a wide player, Reece James and Chilwell, with their injury record last season, it's evident that you need backups for those guys as well as centre backs. And, a lot of your fans were getting sensitive when I was using the word rebuild. They're like, no, it's just minor tweaks. And I'm like, no, dude, you fully need to rebuild your squad. Like, your best players are not in their prime years, or they're injury prone, or they've just left because Rudiger was that good. Like this guy, like
Mm-hmm.
his last season for you, he was outstanding. I think he was your best centre back, like because he was available more than
I
Thiago
would
was.
quietly say though, I do think we've reinforced the defense well. Like, I do think we've been leaky this season, but I think a defense needs to be able to grow an understanding of each other. You bring in the likes of Fafana, Koulibaly, Cucurella, all into what I think would be our best back five. They do need to understand each other a bit more, and I think by the end of the season, you might see that a bit more. The
Mm,
problem was further up the pitch. Like Tuchel at least sorted out the defensive issues perfectly, going from Alonso being our number two to Ben Chilwell being our number two. Even if he hasn't been at his best this season, it's still a massive upgrade. The right
mm,
side, yes, we should have reinforced a lot more. I just think there was too much for us to do in this window. And
yeah.
you're completely correct. There was a massive rebuild that needed to be done, and it was always going to take more than one window. Which is why I was
Mm,
just saying, don't talk about a title race. We are nowhere near a title race. The way Man City can go on 20, 25 game unbeaten runs and people think we're going to come close to that. No chance. I would have just happily taken 4-4 third again. But that's for us to sort out, hopefully, within the next window or so. The only thing, again, he should have done was the midfield. That was just unforgivable.
The thing is as well, yeah, like speaking of the title race thing, yeah, like because yeah, like obviously, I've a good friend of mine. He's a Man United fan. He looked at this as well, and what I said about us with the FA Cup and you with the Champions League, like all clubs make these mistakes. Liverpool like made the same mistake last season. Like where they've sort of had the quad on, got two domestic trophies. Like they've kind of Klopp's downplayed what or FSG us a whole different stream. Whoever was responsible at Liverpool decided that not as many reinforcements were perhaps needed as they thought. And clubs that like Arsenal and Tottenham, as much as I hate to say it with Tottenham, they've kind of made ground on that a bit, close the gap. But speaking of title races, right? You worked this out since you last won the title under Conte, where you did achieve 92 points as well. which has gone on to become like the norm. Liverpool got 92 points last season, didn't win the league, lost less than City. They lost 2 times to City's 3.
Mm-hmm.
In between the time Conte won the league to last season, before no, in fact, including this summer window, Chelsea have spent apparently 947 million on 26 players and haven't been in a title race. And the thing that I like, I think that obviously me and you, like, we can have like on a level chat. Like a lot of Chelsea fans got a different type of energy here. Whereas when you point this out, it's just like, yeah, but where's your Champions League? But that's a lot to spend and a lot to bring in to not
Yep.
like. Obviously, we get it. Like, winning the Champions League is the most prestigious trophy. But I think the
You got to
true
make
mark
a
of a
dynasty
team,
with that.
yeah, the true mark of a team's quality is consistency in your own league, 38 games, and to consistently have not been near City and Liverpool, who in that period have probably spent less, both of them. And they've run away with it. I feel like that's not talked about enough. Like that there is this, like when we were judged on rebuilding, at the beginning, it was eighth and fifth. Look at what Arteta spent. He's had so much money to invest in the squad. Like, it just goes to show, really, like, a few things. Like, money doesn't always guarantee success. Like, if you're not spending it well, you might as well not be spending it. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it all
and
depends on what
Arsenal
you
haven't
look
been
at
spending
success.
money for a long time. We've been spending money poorly, but I would say the last 2 summer windows have shown a real buck in that trend. And I think this is what has let Chelsea down. Like the decisions that are being made at the club at the moment, they're not good
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. I think this is like I don't want to say too much about the old regime because regardless, like I'm still gonna love Abramovich for everything he's done and where he left Chelsea, but I can assess it and see pros and cons to it. Like my biggest problem with the old regime was our scouting.
Yep.
And this is what is shown in terms of the money that we spent. Just look at our top 10 signings in general. Other
Mm-hmm.
than Jorginho, it's a flop list. And the whole reason because of that is because we either we bring in a bunch of different managers very quickly, all with different styles of play. We'll go from Mourinho counter-attacking, Conte counter-attacking to Sarri possession base, Lampard playing a pressing based system, Tuchel playing a possession based system, and they're all bringing a string of different players. Some of them that the manager doesn't even ask for, and that
Yep.
again feeds into that problem. Like Lukaku, not a manager signing. The manager didn't ask for him. Havertz, the manager didn't ask for him. Werner, the manager didn't ask for him. You could keep strolling down through that list. I'm sure there's a few others as well, but that
Mm-hmm.
was our issue. That's why I'm not judging Bowley or the new regime just yet because yeah, it was still harsh sacking Tuchel. I'm never gonna change my mind from that, but I get it. Like this is what happens when a new ownership takes over. They bring in their new people, and they've given Potter a 5-year contract. They are going to back him. I would be very, very surprised if Potter gets sacked within the next 2.5 years. I think they're genuinely going to give him the time to build his squad, and they're going
Mm-hmm.
to give him the players that he asks for specifically. They might
Yep.
throw in a few ideas of players that they want. Yeah, they might try and press Ronaldo every now and then because they want their statement signing, but I don't believe they sign him unless the manager says so. Same way with
Mm-hmm.
Tuchel. If they wanted Ronaldo that badly, they could have just told Tuchel to shut his mouth and they brought him in. They asked him about
Yeah.
6 times. So our issue, and I get it, wasn't really spoken about because we were still winning trophies in spite of it, but I do believe it also papers over the cracks. I think both sides are correct on this one because the Champions League papered over a lot of cracks. I think there's a lot of players who have been playing poorly since the Champions League that have got away with it because of the Champions League. Tuchel would not be getting a lot of criticism in games that he probably deserved it because of the Champions League. The old regime wouldn't, because they took us to a Champions League. And like, I'm happy with it. I ain't going to say nothing about it, of course, but I'm also not using the Champions League as an excuse. Like, yeah, that's great and all, but we know Chelsea's a cup team. I could back Chelsea on their day against anybody in a 90-minute game. In terms of the league, in terms of consistency, we have never been able to show that. And I do believe like a dynasty can still be winning trophies continuously. Like what Roman Abramovich did is always going to be spoken about. But you're right as well, where you have to, even if it's not the league, even if it's cup competitions, whatever it is, you make a dynasty based off consistency. Like Real Madrid when they three-peated the Champions League, like even you guys winning the FA Cup 3 years on the bounce. That's why they look at the FA Cup as Arsenal's trophy, because you guys have won it the most. United winning it back to back. Chelsea when Jose won it back to back. That's your dynasty. It's consistency either in the cups or in the league. And I just think because of the way we scouted and looked at players over the last few years, we never really were able to build that consistency.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think, if you look at your squad now, I see it as the remnants of your last 3 managers. Like and as you said, you're like they've all got different ideas of how to play football and like therefore how to build a squad. And now you're a squad of good players, but they just don't fit together. And the worrying thing about what Bowley did, he might have been right to get rid of Tuchel. It might have been a case where Tuchel's taken you as far as you can go. But as you said, if you give him a window, spend more money, and then you sack him after 7 games, you've perpetuated the same problem. You see what I mean? That's what I think will take you backwards before you come forward. I mean, Chelsea will be back, but you've set yourself back, I would say, well, another season, another summer window where you either commit to Tuchel not being good enough, you bring Potter in, you give him the summer, or you give it until the end of the season where Tuchel at least integrates the players that he wanted. Like now you've got a manager integrating players that he might not even believe in, which just settles and takes out the rhythm of a rebuild anyway. And that's where you are. Like you are rebuilding. Like you still look at that right hand side, it needs help. You still look at that midfield, it's got those issues. As for Oba, I mean, listen,
We
he's
just
going
needed a
for
goal
tomorrow.
scorer.
He's not solving your problem for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And this is why we've got a youth policy in place, because we're looking for some long-term solutions. We're not looking to bypass any part of the process, or if it means waiting, which we've had to in certain areas, as you saw with bringing in Jesus this season, bringing in Zinchenko, you're better off doing that, integrating no more than 4 or 5 players a window, because Nottingham Forest, they bought like a whole new squad, and Coppell's like a dog chasing cards. He doesn't know what to do with all those players, like so. I think this is really going to cost you, and you'll be lucky to get top 4. I think.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It says a lot where I would never ask for us to finish third, but if we finish third, I would have taken it because it might have been an easier route to the Champions League. I don't know if we're winning it this year. I really don't. Anything can happen. I've seen crazier things happen at Chelsea, but I wouldn't put money on us winning the Champions League. And in terms of top 4, shit, I don't know what to make of it, because United look good. I didn't expect Ten Hag to integrate his philosophy that quickly into the team, and they already look brilliant. You guys, I still think you guys are more looking at top 4 as opposed to being in the title race, but you should be in top 4. I would be so surprised if you drop out. Spurs, they don't look sustainable, but they still are getting results. There's more that can be said for us. Even Newcastle's in there. Even Newcastle.
that's
And
it.
in terms of all of them, right now we look like the weakest. There's no reason for us to say Chelsea should be making top 4. I'd like to think we can, but I could also understand if we didn't. Like I'm always going to push for it. I'm not going to say I'll be happy with us finishing outside the top 4, but if it happens this season, I'm not going to be screaming Potter out. I'm not going to be screaming we should have kept Tuchel. Even with Tuchel, I don't know if the squad makes top 4. We're not going to act like the last few weeks under him were any good either. It's just like you said again, we're in a rebuild, and when you do that, you're going to have to go backwards. And with this squad, I also think it's just been hella overdue. This squad has been disappointing for a while, and we were saved by Tuchel last season, even in the run to the Champions League. Like, I hate giving any individual the idea that they were the reason that they won as the Champions League. But if I'm picking anybody, it's Tuchel. We're not winning that with Lampard, and we're not finishing third with Lampard either. So that was the only thing that was holding us into that position.
This is the thing, right? Yeah, you know, like looking at what you've got to do now, and in terms of the rebuild, like to compare it to ours, the significant investment in Arteta didn't come straight away. And I think because what you mentioned about the scouting and what I mentioned about the players that you bought in the last couple of years to not be challenging for a title, you can't use the same recruitment arm that's been proven as a failing one if you're trying to rebuild a squad. It doesn't make sense. Like, okay, so you're going to use the same scouts, you know, the same coaches and whatever that you've used to recruit.
Oh yeah, but that's all going to change.
Because we had that with Arteta when he came in, you know, where it was just like, if you look at what Arteta did, he rebuilt the backroom. And you know, I think with Potter, he brought the head of recruitment from Brighton as well.
We're going to get a director of football too. We haven't had that for years.
I've been watching you guys, and I think there have been approaches, several, to bring people in. I think Edwards from Liverpool was wanted. You know, the guy from Leipzig has been approached.
Yeah, we've been looking at Campos as well. I think he's at PSG, but I don't think that's likely either.
Yeah, and I think that's what needs to happen at Chelsea first under Potter. You know, and it's the same thing. You know, like Arteta rebuilt that to supplement the style of play that he wants to use. You know, like, and I think that's what Potter will be working towards doing towards the end of the season. What will be, I think, for Chelsea this season. I think you can make top four because I think, look, you only lost one game in 10 under Potter with a squad that he didn't even, you know, like he's put no stamp on it whatsoever. You know, like he's worked with Cucurella, but would, if he had been the manager at the beginning of the summer window, would he have brought Cucurella in? Would he have fitted into his system, or you know, like at Chelsea with the players that Chelsea had? Would he have maybe chosen to strengthen in another area? You don't know, but I think, yeah, I mean, I still see Tottenham. Of course, you're going to think I'm saying this because you know who I support and our relationship with Tottenham, but I at least seen signs under Potter that you're trying to also play more progressive football. You know, you are actually trying to dominate.
We at least look more direct. That's the only difference I've seen.
You're trying to dominate teams. I'm seeing a progression in how you're playing, whereas I'm looking at Tottenham. They're not looking. It doesn't look like they're trying to transition away from being a counter-attacking team. And look, you were there for the taking when they went Stamford Bridge, and they robbed you. They completely deserve nothing.
One of our best performances that season. We still didn't win.
Yeah, and I think Arsenal convincingly and United convincingly beat them. I think
they look worse than they did last season, if we're being truly honest. Like I thought they'd be competing for the league, and they're nowhere near it. Nowhere near it.
Listen, the gaff everyone gave them. Like the irony is, all of the like we're in the position they saw themselves being in, and I'm more enjoying that over them than obviously you guys being where you are. Although that's enjoyable as well. I can't lie.
I think there's plenty for you guys to enjoy this season. Like it's gone perfectly for you lot.
Yeah, and I think if you had said to me this is where we would be 2 games before the World Cup break, I'd have said you're crazy. You know, like I think a lot was said about the PSV game that we lost after 8 games. We lost to United. You know, sort of before that. about us falling off, and you could see we rested a lot of players, kept them fresh for the Forest game, came back from that game. So we've shown real bounce back ability. From the two setbacks we've had this season. Drop points at Southampton as well, away on the road, but I'm going to moan about that too much. But probably should have won that game. But other than that, it's just been it's been really good to watch as well. The football, just sort of the manner that we're beating teams in. Martinelli and Saka are really coming into their own now.
Do you feel like they're good enough for a title race throughout the whole season? Like, in terms of actually keeping close to them too? Because I feel like a few people don't. They talk about title race, but to them, title race is just first v second. To me, it's like, would you think you'll keep close with City for like the majority of the season?
The thing is, I think if this first 11 stayed fit if it stayed fit for the whole duration, no injuries to Jesus in particular, or Saliba, or Saka, or Martinelli, Partey, and Xhaka. Odegaard, there's been so many good performances, to be honest. But I would say that that's like the core, like the spine. Throw Odegaard in there. If you're looking at from, sort of defense right the way through to attack. But that's a tall ask, especially with Partey. I don't think the problem's the quality in the first 11. The quality, like when one or two of those players gets injured, is the issue that I see. And I think that's what will undo us. But I absolutely think, look, like if we can keep them fit, why not? Like looking at the way we're playing, I wouldn't say we're playing much worse than City. I would argue there's elements of our game that's better than City's. In terms of, I think the threat that we pose in Martinelli and Saka on the flanks, I'd say is up there with the quality of City. I'd say Saliba.
I mean, Grealish hasn't done much this season. I could see it. Who usually
Yeah.
plays on the right for them? Is it Silva or Foden, Mahrez?
Either Silva, Foden, or Mahrez. But I think they've mostly used Silva when he's been fit. But
it's up there. It's definitely up there the way you guys have been this season. That my thing's been the same thing as you. I don't know if you have the depth or the experience to do it for that long.
Yeah.
Like, to me, if you're in this position by February, end of February, because as soon as the World Cup is done, we have another fixture pile up for like 6-7 weeks. I think if you lot can maneuver out of this and maneuver out of that one, to be honest, no one can say anything at that point. You guys would be worthy title contenders, and with less fixtures after that, could probably see it through to May.
Yeah, and I think what we need to do is strengthen in January to really help us do that. We didn't do that last season. Tottenham did. Tottenham brought in a couple difference makers in Bentancur and Kulusevski, and that cost us. Are we going to make the same mistake? That's my biggest concern. I don't think we will. I think we will by January. I think we made back 20-25 million from the 115 we spent in the summer. So I feel like we spent less to leave more in the tank for January. But yeah, that's going to be the huge part. But I guess, man, like I'm going to bring this comment back up again because it is kind of like the theme of the show. I mean, I spoke to a lot of fans, Chelsea fans, and I have to say, like, there's a large consensus that are not looking forward to this game, and I'm not used to that at all. I mean, even though our record at the Bridge is good, like no Premier League team has a better record at Stamford Bridge than Arsenal, and we've won 4 of the last 5, I think, against you in all competitions. And yeah, like the Bridge, I think the last time we won there and you won there in the league against us is like 2000.
It is 4 in the last 5. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Our recent record stunk. Oh my days.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what? How do you see your prospects? I mean, do you think that this is a game you could win, or I mean, the way I see it, like we've if that's what we've been doing to you when we've been at our worst, like, and now we're approaching our best again. I just with the injuries you got as well, because where we're strong with Saka and Martinelli, Chilwell and James are not present, and they're your strongest players for that
No
position.
Kante, no Kovacic, Kepa's out too. Here's the thing, like I'm approaching this game with absolutely no logic, because if I put logic into it, I'm not looking forward to this game at all. Recent records, injuries, form, atmosphere going into the game, nothing is on our side at all, except maybe Aubameyang will be a bit pissed off and he'll turn up a little bit more than he usually does. Other than that, yeah, it's not looking good for us. You guys look dangerous. What definitely do. We don't. There's not much to take from a Chelsea fan going into this. I just think it all depends on the first 30 minutes. In spite of your recent history against us, I could look back at all of those games and say, we were our own problem. Like, I've come out of some of those games and said, yeah, Arsenal played better than us, but I also come out of those games thinking individual disaster classes all over the pitch. And I think if we could just start the game well and work from there, it will give us a base to work on. But then that again doesn't work against us, because you lot really start games brilliantly. That's the first 30 minutes I've heard a lot are your most dangerous period of the game. For Chelsea, we never start a game well. Rarely ever do. So even that doesn't really benefit us. So I'm just going into this with no logic. I'm just enjoying it because it's Chelsea versus Arsenal. It's always my favourite fixture in the calendar. But yeah, no logic at all, because if I do that, we're getting absolutely pammed.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, like, yeah, not like the way we've been starting games this season. I think that there's a lot of energy, a lot of intensity. You saw the Liverpool game. Liverpool, we haven't scored against them in 6 appearances. We, I think Jota had scored 6 in 6. We scored with the first shot on target in the first
It
minute.
was under a minute, weren't it?
Yeah, and
Ridiculous.
I think
If
that's
you
what
don't
we
score early, we're done out. We're done out.
that's what we need to do. I think we need to seize the initiative, even though it's away. I think why we do okay with Chelsea is, obviously, like, it's not that difficult to get to Stamford Bridge. Like, Arsenal have a big fan base in London. We can make any stadium in London seem like home because,
You guys bring a good away crowd. I will say
yeah,
that.
like we got the biggest localized fan base of any team in Europe. So it's not really like, we can just hop on the train and get there. We turn up in numbers against Chelsea because, you know, our rivalry with Spurs is not competitive. Like, your rivalry with Spurs is not competitive. Like,
I never even looked at
they're
Spurs as our biggest rivals growing up. It was always you guys.
they're just there. They're making up the numbers. Like, we obviously with Arsenal it's different because we're both North London clubs and the history and like acrimony between our two clubs. There's a very real hatred, but we don't respect them. Like, we've been given they've given us no reason to. Like, whereas you guys, you've won stuff. You've obviously completed your cabinet. You've had the last 2 decades that you've had. You've dwarfed yourself in size now. Like, you've dwarfed, sorry, Spurs. Like, with that period, and there is points of contention now between. You know, I'll sit here and say it's red, even though I'm wearing blue now. And I'll say this is the only time that London's blue. Yeah, is when I put this retro kit on. You'll think it's blue, but I think that adds the spice to it as well.
Yeah, because we have a debate. There can be a debate between the pair of us. Neither of us will agree with the other side, but we both have points we bring to the table. We've got our European success. You guys have more of your consistent league success, and neither one of us can really bring anything to counter that. Spurs, just there, really.
They're just there, yeah. And
That's
I
it.
think,
They beat us both in one final each, and that's all they have on us.
yeah, nothing else. And I think that's why when Arsenal and Chelsea play, is it's a very fiery occasion, and I think the Chelsea players, form does go out the window because I think you've definitely got the quality in that squad to pull off what, as crazy as it seems, would be an upset. I think at the moment, like just given the way we're both playing.
Oh, it would be a massive
But,
upset. We could
but
call it that.
you can't say the quality isn't there in the squad. Like I like players like Mount. I think Havertz is he's starting to look good under he's starting to look good under Potter. I think like you've got Cucurella there, Sterling. He can hurt anyone. Like he can hurt
All depends on
absolutely.
if they can turn it up. To me, there's a lot of players that need to start living up to their price tag. And if they do it tomorrow, it's great. But even if we beat you guys, I'll be happy on the weekend. It'll be a big derby. Wouldn't be the lot. I don't remember the last time we got a result against you guys at the Bridge. But even then, it's like, okay, cool. Now we got to do it against City in the Cup. We got to do it against Newcastle. And then after the World Cup. Our biggest problem has just been consistency. Any 190-minute game, you could see a good Chelsea team. But even then, we have to be smart with the way we turn up for this game. I think if we play 4 at the back, we're getting spun. I don't want to, as we can't even touch the pitch. I refuse to see him 1v1 with Martinelli. It wouldn't be nice at all. Midfield, if we
Completely
play any
natural.
double pivot, we're getting ripped apart. Has to be free in midfield if we want to even stand a chance.
Mm.
And if anything, I kind of think we need to look back to the Conte days and sit back a little bit, try and absorb some pressure and hit you guys in transition. I think, again, if we come out and we give you guys a game, we're not winning. We're not winning because you guys just dominate the midfield battle.
Yeah, and I think looking at the game, we lost with United. And if looking at elements of the PSV game, looking at how Southampton exploited us to get an equaliser, a lot of that involved counter transitioning, and being caught on the counter where we are using that high line. And I think obviously the very real danger you have with a high line is, if someone can get in behind that and exploit it.
I think we actually have the players for that as well. Like Aubameyang, Havertz, Sterling, they're all players that do really well in space. And for most of them, the fact is we don't really get enough of that space. So maybe that works into our hands, but we have to drop back a little bit first to do that. But again, it all depends on the first 15 minutes. Again, if you lot score early, I don't think it will even matter at that point because I just don't see us coming back.
And in terms of speaking of the player, let's address the elephant in the room, Aubameyang, right? Because obviously, I've got a big TikTok platform, and the generation on there is a lot younger. Like they're a bit more, like sort of the ilk of what they've seen. They've only lived when Chelsea have been sort of the better team, so to say, of London, and they've seen past players like Fabregas, Ashley Cole, Giroud, kind of leave us, join you, go on to be very successful. And then by contrast, they've seen you offload a number of fringe players that become sort of, surplus to requirements like Czech, David Luiz, Willian. The last one especially being an absolute disaster class for us.
It just vindicated a lot I said about him for the last 4 years.
Yeah, like I think, to be honest, a lot of people, I think like there was thousands of tags, in Troops' videos from AFTV, doing the Obama who thing, mentioning that this is going to be another one of those Fabregas or Ashley Cole stories. And my message was simple, and I said it, and like that he wouldn't fit in at Chelsea. Not because of his not personality, not that he doesn't have quality. What we saw with Aubameyang in the last sort of year and a half was someone who, if he got on the score sheet, if he would affect the game. His ability to score was very service reliant. He's not picking up the ball and creating something out of nothing on a consistent basis. And if either the service is bad or he has a bad day in spite of having good service, he's not impacting the game. He's not bringing other players in. He's not linking up the play and creating space and opportunities for other players to score goals. Sterling, I think, is someone who relies on like having a striker who he can play off, like who's kind of coming in and is able to get close to him, play little 1-2s, give and go with him, also run off the ball to make space for him to kind of run into as well. And I said that the two, I don't think they can be effective together, dude. Like, I think you should have either played Broer, gone and got someone like Ivan Toney. But obviously, you had so many other areas.
We wanted Toney after Aubameyang, if that makes any sense to you at all. I was literally ripping my hair out. And I don't think Aubameyang's been too bad for us. Like, no. I know there was a lot of questions about his link-up play at Arsenal. Weirdly enough, I think it's been all right for us, to be honest. I've seen him make a few chances here and there. He got the assist for Sterling the other day against Zagreb. He's made a couple chances, which other players haven't put away. In terms of, like what you said, he needs service. That I do agree with, though. He can ghost through games and he does rely heavily on what you give him. But I also do believe he isn't as bad in possession as what I expected. Does ghost a little bit. I do think his finishing at times could have been better, but I don't know. I think it's still a little bit too early to like make a full judgment on Aubameyang yet. This game would do a lot to, I guess, endear him to Chelsea fans. I think he's been taken in really well, but everyone's just expecting him to be a 1 or 2 season stopgap. And then if we bring in another striker, we integrate Brozier a little bit more. I've heard a lot of praise about Brozier too. Could potentially be one you see a lot more in the next year or so.
I like
him. He's got that little shade of Diego Costa about him. For someone at that size, very quick on the ball and very good. And he just needs a little bit more experience. But a lot of what you said about Aubameyang, I agree with. I don't know about him and Sterling. If anything, I feel like sometimes they both let each other down. Aubameyang's finishing will let him down. Sterling's finishing will let him down. I guess we've at least got a goal scorer in the squad, even though he hasn't scored a lot this season. I think he's only got 3 in all competitions for us. But I do think a bit more time he can bed into the squad a little bit more. All just depends on himself and issues further up the field too. Like our midfield's always our biggest issue in games, and our creativity is never consistent. Aubameyang will get like 1 clear-cut chance a game or 2 at the very most, and I do think we need to give him a little bit more than that. Especially with Reece James being injured, he's basically our best creator. It is what it is, but I know he's going to perform on Sunday. Like all the issues with Arteta could just by itself, I do believe he's going to be switched on for this game. I'd be very disappointed if he had a disaster class of a performance, but if he does well tomorrow, I guess it will endear him to Chelsea fans a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I think, look, the talk is there that it would have to be him. I think, like sort of doing something, being involved, riding up our crowd. I don't want to see him get any joy tomorrow, man. I think seeing the promo and what he said on like being a blue now, and he's starting to piss me off now. I can't lie. Like, he's making it hella personal, and
I do believe they're all pressing him to do it, though. Like, I saw the behind-the-scenes thing with BT, and they're telling him every word to say, and even then he's got that face like, I don't even want to say this, but cool. Like, he definitely still has love for Arsenal. But if you guys start booing him on Sunday, I don't know. He might react a bit differently.
Yeah, I think it's going to go one of 2 ways, but he's not going to be... He won't receive a warm reception, at Stamford Bridge, I think, at all, from us at all. Look, I'm looking at Saliba, the way that defense is playing. They've got to be pocketing him. They've got to. Like, could be anyone, just not him. Not him, yeah.
Yeah, it would sting like a bastard. I totally get.
Yeah, but I think, Yeah, I mean, what do you think your score predictions will be for this game?
I'm speaking a 2-0 Ubber double into existence, not for any logical reason at all. It's just what I'd like to see. I'm not approaching this game with logic. If I do, we're getting battered. I'm just going to speak a 2-0 win into existence.
I mean, to be honest, I think both teams will score, but I've said 3-1. I think we can get a few goals. I think just in terms of the form, the injuries, the form record in this fixture, sort of looking at, I think our fans are really gonna really sort of push us on, and I think we've got to go there, get something early, sort of really take the wind out of yourselves quickly. I think if we can get that early goal, and look, we've done that a lot this season. I think we'll do okay in this game, and I mean, it'd be a great result for us, whatever form Chelsea are in. Sort of, it's I think important, and I think it would be symbolic, I think, of a potential shift, in the tide, sort of now in where the two clubs are heading. And
I feel like when we beat you guys at the Emirates in 2004 in the Champions League, a little changing of the guard game. I get that same vibe from it. Same vibe. That's why I'm trying to just speak positivity into this game, bruv, because nothing is going our way at all.
And that's what I think. I think that's really going to spur the players on. You've seen like Arteta when we went to play Brentford. The whiteboard's coming out. Nice kick about with the boys. Yeah, I think he's going to take Oba's picture.
Play that video of Aubameyang saying they're all little boys who listen to the manager and shit like that.
I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to sit there in the changing room, and he's just going to he's not going to say a word. He's just going to press play on that. Yeah. And then he's just going to say, go out there, boys, and go get a 4 and 3 points.
Win every duel. No lost duels, nothing. Straight into them. And yeah, Silva, no, I'm positive. I am positive, just for absolutely no reason at all. Just positive.
The part where logic's getting thrown out the window, that tells me everything, mate. That tells me,
bruv. Like, I'm just speaking a 2-0 win, and that's it.
All I'm going to say is fixture. You're scared, and you should be, because that's what I've been saying all week. Yeah, like for me, these last 2 decades have not been pretty, especially when you are of that older generation and you saw everything that Arsenal achieved, and then Chelsea come along, like, and you've actually seen the transition. And I've always said that your excesses will catch up with you. Like what happens when Roman goes? What happens if he turns the tap off? Like everything is reliant on the way he runs the club. There comes a time when he leaves, there's going to be this transitional period where you're trying to figure things out, life after him. And that is when we'll seize our moment. I always said that. Always.
And that might be coming true tomorrow. Might be though. I
think, look, there's so much riding on this game for that reason. I think what we have shown now, I think, because it was like the Liverpool game. Like you talked about the 04 and 5 Champions League defeat. The 04 season being the Champions League defeat, representing the change of guard. I think with Liverpool it was the same thing. Like I was fortunate enough to see us win the league title in Anfield, and okay, they won another league title after that, but really that was where it started to end for them. And we beat Liverpool again, like this season, and I think that's showing that this team has some mental resolve now. Like they've got sort of things that they want to achieve, and you're in the way, bro. Like and I think for that reason we're going to come through in this game. But If we don't, I guess I'm getting clipped. But I don't, you know.
Hey,
I'll take
fan
it.
media's about being clipped, bruv. No,
But
no
the
point
thing is,
hiding it anyway. Do you know how many times your fan base has clipped me up after losses the last few years? It is what it is, bruv.
it is what it is, bro. Like I live by the sword and I die by it. Yeah, like I'm never gonna change. But what I will say is, um, I don't think this isn't me trying to get out if we do lose. I don't think a result like it will be a setback. You know, I think we'll go into other games, win those. I don't think either you or Spurs are finishing above us this season.
I don't
Unless
really think the
something,
result changes anything.
I
Like,
think if something drastic happens in January, that might change my perspective. But I think with you guys, I see there's just a lot more to do in Spurs' system. There's so much that needs to
not
be done to
sustainable
overhaul
at
that.
all.
You need ball playing centre backs. You need one or two, even if they just get a creative midfielder. You know, like it's no good if they don't have someone in the early phases of play progressing the ball into them. And so they've got a lot to do as well. I just don't see it. I genuinely don't see it. I, I don't. You know.
I don't know if I can talk about Chelsea finishing above anybody right now, but I don't think a result changes too much. I think if we win, it's good for confidence. I don't think it changes anything in terms of do I feel more confident in terms of our top four hopes? No. I need consistency. Consistency comes first for anything. Because even the top four race, it won't be consistent at all. Big up my guy anyway. But yeah, for you guys either, it doesn't change anything. If you guys lose, like, yeah, you might drop off top spot. I never thought you were winning the league anyway.
No. You know,
Arsenal's
like.
about top four for me. And it won't change top four for you at all. You're still going to be probably one of the front runners for it. I don't expect it to cause any car crashes unless you have a big injury at the game or anything. So, in terms of both of our seasons, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. It's just all about bragging rights.
That's it. And I'm hoping that we'll be taking those tomorrow. But yeah, man. You just never know. You just never know. But listen, Carefree Lewis, I know you got a next thing to jump
Oh
on.
shit! Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but I'm going to be jumping on your channel later as well.
yeah. 5 p.m. people, so lock in if you guys are about.
Yeah, make sure you do, man. Make sure you do, man. I can't be. I suspect have you got other people coming on there as well? Or?
A couple other Gooners, couple other Chelsea fans. So it'll be a good debate. It'll be a good debate.
Yeah, man. So yeah, make sure you tune in for that as well. But yeah, it's been great to have you on. Love to have you on more sort of after the World Cup break as well. And
Yeah, bro, give me a shout, bro. Give me a shout. I'll definitely be around.
yeah, man. Yeah, it's been great to have you on. And worst of luck for tomorrow, mate.
Same to you, my friend. Same to you, bro.
No worries, man. But yeah, guys, we're gonna call it a day here. Big game tomorrow. Hopefully, we can get the 3 points, but you know, only time will tell. We're out, people. Peace.